Good morning, Rabotai. Welcome to Breakfast in the Class. Breakfast in the Class today is sponsored Lilui Nishmat, in loving memory of Adele Bibi Alea Shalom, Lilui Nishmat Adele Bat Victoria, sponsored by Chantel and Rabbi David Bibi. Ruach HaLemet Tenichen Vegan Eden. As well, dedicated loving memory of Mrs. Lily Safra Alea Shalom, Lilui Nishmat Lea Bat Chana, whose philanthropy has reached so many throughout the entire world. Also, Netanel, could you get me the names from the two people from last night? From the plane. Also, I got a beautiful email yesterday from someone about the capacity for good. We've made a lot of different merch that people could buy to support Chazak, Breakfast in the Class, gas, if you will, things that help people that listen every day show their support and their excitement to be part of this family. That's what it is. It's a family of people listening every day. It's very special. So my friends, someone reached out to me and said, I'm sure there's some people who want to buy a hoodie, a sweatshirt, a cup. They want to have it. They want to buy it, but it's a little too expensive. They can't afford it. He says, I'd like to spend X amount of dollars, but if there's someone out there that wants one but can't afford it, some young person, some person that's coming on hard times, let them send an email to info@ejsny.org with their name and address. If someone can't afford it, they'll buy one and send them a complimentary hoodie. He gave me a fixed amount about how much he's going to cover. I think it's something like 20 or 25 hoodies or something like that. What a special thing to do. It's not like anyone can't live without a Chazak hoodie. It's not the point. It's not like someone's not going to have a good life if they don't have I survived the toaster fire of 2021 T-shirt. But if you wanted one and it was too much, you could. What a beautiful thing to do for somebody. I just thought it's so special. When someone gives someone who doesn't have food to eat, it's one thing, because you feel very bad. Here, it's like the guy's going to survive either way without it. It's very special. That's a very sensitive thing to do. So Hazak Baruch, Mr. Anonymous, I was very impressed by your email. It shows a beautiful sensitivity. The shiur is also in Leilui Nishmat. Two people who unfortunately passed away last night from the Cleveland community in a horrific plane crash. Baruch Taub Alav Shalom and Benjamin Chafetz. Thank you so much. Ruach Adonai Tenicheim Began Eden. Hashem should bring their family and their community comfort in what must be the most unimaginable time of their life, to lose someone. To see, I don't know if anyone saw, but they sent out a picture of the text that this man sent to his wife when the plane was going down. It's just heartbreaking to hear, someone say, we've lost the engines. I love you. I tell the kids I love them. I'm sorry for anything I did. It's just unbelievable. And in the final moments that a person's alive, sometimes you get to see the fabric of their character. All he wants to say is to remind his wife and kids how much he loves them, to apologize, to ask mechila for anything that he did wrong, and to say, pray to Hashem. What a people we are part of, and sometimes you get to be inspired by the happy moments of Am Yisrael, and sometimes we're also inspired by the saddest moments of Am Yisrael. Thousands of people last night from everywhere in the world were saying Tehillim, hoping that they'd be found safe and sound, and unfortunately, that was not what was meant to be. Hashem should send the families comfort and anything that they need. I'm sure Am Yisrael will stand by them in this difficult hour and make sure that these Yatomim, these poor children and their wives will have everything that they need. Yehi Zechram Baruch Tenuchamu min hashamayim makom yenachem etchem b'toch sha'ar litzom Yerushalayim. My friends, our parasha teaches us every single day. We sit here together and we learn great lessons to be able to live the very best lives that we can. You think about, like we said, how a person holds himself in a time of fear, in a time of tragedy, and to build someone that's their response under the gun. I remember a line from Emmanuel Moreno, who was a lieutenant in the Israeli army, and he asked one of his fellow soldiers. He said to him, "Tell me, if your helicopter gets hit and the helicopter goes down, and you have 5 seconds left, what would you do with those 5 seconds?" So the guy said, "I don't know. I'd be screaming. I'd be yelling. I don't know what I'd be doing. Crying. Maybe I'll take a deep breath, close my eyes." He says, Aaron, what would you do? He says, me, Emmanuel Moreno. You know what he said? Me, he said, I would close my eyes and I would say, Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. And the soldier's looking at him. And he says, at that moment, that's what you'd say? He said, yes, that's what I would say. And he said, if a person has 5 seconds in their life and they do nothing with those 5 seconds, that means that their life is not really worth living, because life is really experienced 5 seconds at a time. So what you do in 5 seconds is your whole life. And I'm just looking at this and I notice a person who's so connected with family, who's so connected with morality. Forgive me for anything that I've done. A person who's so connected with their faith. It's so special. Please say Tehillim. Unbelievable. So how does a person become someone, a person of great faith, a person of deep values? How does that transformation happen? What does a person need to do? So I want to point out something from the Perashah, something which maybe challenges the way we think about things. You know, Moshe comes into Paro and he says, listen, Paro, gig's up. You enslaved the Jews for so long, game over. They're leaving. We're going out to the desert to worship our God, da-da-da-da. Paro's like, not happening. Moshe says, listen, you don't pay attention, Hashem's gonna, right? We will rock you. We will rock you. Yes? What's gonna happen? The river is gonna turn to blood. Paro calls in his magicians and he says, guys, could you replicate what he's doing? Could we do in our firm what they're doing in theirs? The magicians come along, they turn water to blood. Paro says, get out of here. My guys, Punchinello is my name. I could do it too. Chalas. Second makkah. What does Moshe bring? Frogs. What does Paro say? Hartumim. Magicians. Come. What do? They produce a frog using whatever sleight of hand or magic they have. Finally comes Kinim, the lice, these super tiny bugs. The whole of Egypt is crawling with them. Everybody is scratching, itching all over the place. They can't sleep. They can't. He tells Khartumim. They come, he says, do it. They say, we can't. Etzba Elokim. It's the finger of God. Now, why can't they replicate these kinim, these lice? Rashi gives 2 reasons. One reason is because this magic, it doesn't apply to anything smaller than a grain of barley. And lice are very small, so they were unable to replicate it. The second opinion is that in order for a person to be able to have any sort of ability to use the magic or whatever they were using, they needed to be on the ground. And in Kinim, because they'd swarmed the whole of Egypt, they weren't standing on the ground, they were standing on lice. That's how many lice invaded Egypt's borders at that time. So Rashi gives you a very technical reason as to why they were unable to do so. Now, let's say for a second we hit pause and you erase everything that you know about the rest of the story of Egypt. At this moment, Paro's like, I don't believe in your God. They're like, okay, sign number 1. Paro's like, that's not a sign. My guys could do that. Okay, sign number 2. Sign number 2. Okay, it's not a sign. My guys could do that. What happens in the third iteration? Now you guys can't do it. Not only that, what are your guys telling you? It's not like they're saying, listen, I don't know how he's doing it, but we can't do this. This guy, he's the new David Copperfield. They didn't declare Moshe to be the greatest magician. They said to Paro clearly, this has nothing to do with Moshe. Etzba Elokim, it's the finger of God. And what does Paro do with that? Nothing. The question of Dam Tzefardeh to me is not strong, but the question of Kinim is what happens to Paro. I want to share with you a story. There was a young man who walked into the yeshiva of Panovich maybe 40 years ago, 50 years ago. He walks in, the boys see this kid coming from a kibbutz, not religious kibbutz in Shomer HaTzair, En Shemer, okay? This kid walks in, and they say to him, "What are you doing here?" So he says, "I came to see what's going on. What do you do in this yeshiva? Everyone in my kibbutz tells me how bad yeshivas are, how bad religious Jews are. I came to see, what do you guys do that's so bad?" They said, "You want to see what we're doing? We're learning a sugya in the Talmud. We're learning," the guy's like, "What's a sugya and what's a Talmud?" They tell him, "Talmud are these books over here, the ones that you pick up give you a hernia, these guys, okay? A sugya is one part, one topic within these books." The guy says, "You mean that's all you do? You just study books? I thought you were killing children. I thought you were doing terrible things the way I was taught to hate you. You're just reading books? That's what you're doing?" He says, "Yeah." The guy says, "Okay." They said, "You want to see what we're learning?" They pair him up with a chavruta. This guy from the most irreligious kibbutz to one of the most prestigious yeshivot in Eretz Yisrael, they pair him up with a chavruta. The guy learns for an hour. He can't believe it. It's so exciting, so interesting. He's never been challenged this way. The kid he's learning with is same age as him, but he's proficient, he's fluent, he understands his language, Aramaic. He's going back and forth explaining all the logic. If he stole it, if he didn't steal it, did he steal it first? Did the guy know that he stole it? What happened? It's amazing. The guy can't believe it. He's on fire. The guy winds up saying, "Hajj, I'm not going back." He's learning there for 2-3 weeks until finally he gets a message from the people from the kibbutz. They say, "Listen, this guy, he's not here. If you're not here, you have to file your papers yourself for your army service. You're not here with us in the kibbutz. You're somewhere else." Okay. The Chazon Ish comes to Rabbi Galinsky and he says, "Listen, this boy now has no papers. He needs to get his situation sorted. So come with me. We'll travel with the boy, and we'll go to Petach Tikva, and there we'll get everything sorted." Okay, they get on the bus and they start traveling from Bnei Brak to Petach Tikva. As they get on the bus, all of a sudden this boy sitting on the bus looks at the boy with the rabbis and he's like, "Hey!" He remembers him from the kibbutz. He says, "What's going on?" He goes, "I can't believe that you got to these guys, these crazy people." He goes, "They're missing a screw. These people, they're sitting there learning all day, rabbis, beards, Majnun, they're out of their minds. I can't believe you're throwing your lot in with them, right? What are you doing there?" Anyway, the Rabbi Galinsky, thinks, "Wow, you know what? This is why Hashem sent me. Hazit, this boy, he's only been in yeshiva for like 2 weeks. How's he going to answer? How's he not going to be embarrassed? How's he not going to be swayed? Maybe Hashem sent me on this trip to be able to speak on his behalf." As the rabbi is getting ready to speak, he hears the boy answer. He says, "David, Azov." You have to understand what that means. You really need to be Israeli to understand how powerful those words are. When you say it to someone, it's like, just let it go. It's very strong when you say that. Azov. Someone says to you, "I'll take you to the thing, and come in my cab, my monit, I'm going to take you to the kotel." "You take me to the kotel?" "Yeah, I want to take you." He goes, "Come, get in. You say, "How much?" The guy says, 100 shekel. You're 3 feet away from the kotel. What do you tell the guy? You don't tell him, "Thank you very much." You don't tell him, "No, thank you, I'll get another cab." You don't tell him, "You're ripping me off." You don't tell him, "Your mother raised you to be a crook." What do you say? Azov. Anyway, he looks at this boy and he says, "David." Sorry, if he's Israeli. David, right? Azov. Leave it. The rabbi is thinking, wow, the boy's answering for himself. What's he going to tell him? How interesting the Gemara is, that how he found the light, how Torah is amazing, how the yeshiva is fantastic, how Olam Haba is amazing, how... The boy says, "Azov, you're telling me these people are crazy? Hanachli lihiyot metumtam kemo Chazon Ish. Let me be as much of an idiot as the Chazon Ish. Ve'ata tishaer pikeach kemo Yoske. And you stay as smart as Yoske. Let me be as foolish. You say I'm a fool, you say I'm an idiot. Let me be as much of an idiot as the Chazon Ish. And you stay as smart as Yoske." I always imagine being the Chazon Ish in that moment. The guy that's pouring cold water on you. Anyway, the boy, he puts his head down, gets off the bus, walks away. They asked the boy, "Who's Yoske?" They said, "He's the guy in the kibbutz that gives out the feed to the chickens." I'm an idiot. Let me be an idiot like the Chazon Ish, like this rabbi. You stay as smart as the other guy in the kibbutz, as Yoske, the guy who gives out the feed to the chickens. My friends, the Saba Mikelm used to say that a lot of times when a person is trying to argue a point, you can't argue your side of the point. Let me explain. You say something, you feel something, you live your life a certain way. I tell you, listen, I think differently. So what do you say? That's what you think. You think this, I think this. My opinion, your opinion, equally valid. I once saw a guy wearing a t-shirt that said, everyone is entitled to my opinion. You have your opinion, I have my opinion. You have your opinion about the Eagles, I have my opinion about the Giants. Yeah, you understand this? So if I give you my reason, what I think, and you tell me your thing, sometimes you need to go where the person is, on their side of the argument, and talk to them on their side of the argument. And let me explain what I mean by this. A person lives their life all the time in the clutches of two warring forces. The force of the Yetzer HaTov and the force of the Yetzer Hara. Sometimes it's very obvious what the Yetzer HaTov wants and what the Yetzer Hara wants. Very obvious. Yes? The Yetzer HaTov, what does he want? One thing. Just wants you to do the right thing. What does the Yetzer Hara want? Just wants you to do the wrong thing. Easy. Don't pray. Don't eat kosher. Break Shabbat. Eat on Yom Kippur. Rip that person off. Right? Yetzer Hara. Easy. But sometimes the Yetzer Hara and the Yetzer HaTov are a little bit more difficult to identify. He's not telling you something terrible. Making a living is not the opposite of Judaism, is it? In fact, you could argue it's a good thing. So now, the Yetzer HaTov is telling me, Yetzer Hara, you need to work. You need to go get a job. You need to stay late at the office. You see what happened there? It started off very easy, clear, clean. You need to work. Of course, everybody needs to work. You have to bring home parnasah. You need to take responsibility of your family. But then Yetzer Hara says to you with the same line, working is good. Making money is good. You need to make more money. You need to stay in the office longer. Yeah, you understand? You need to work today. But today happens to be Shabbat. The Yetzer Hara recognizes that he can't win with you if he says work on Shabbat. So what does he say? He just says work really, really hard. You need to work the hardest. No one should work harder than you in this industry. That sounds like a really good thing, doesn't it? And you start to build up a worldview which revolves around everything coming after my job. And you don't realize that everything includes Shabbat, and everything includes your family, and everything includes having time to pray, and everything includes bending the laws of ethics. And you didn't realize it, because how did Yetzer Hara get you? He started with something that's very kosher and that everyone agrees with. Sometimes a person needs to understand that you don't argue the point side by side. You go to the person's point and you ask them, well, okay, let's say I do what you want. At what stage do I go off the rails? At what stage can I admit that the logic that you've given me goes awry? I'll give you another example. Is it important to take care of yourself? Absolutely. Is it important to live a healthy life? Is it important to focus on your own mental health? Yes. Is it important to focus on your happiness? Yes. You know who else agrees with that? Narcissists. People who are self-obsessed also believe that their number one responsibility is themselves. So that line, your number one responsibility is yourself, which starts off so true and so accurate, because that's the only way you could be anything for anybody else. When it's not mugbal, when it gets to the point where it starts spilling past its boundaries and its borders, what happens? You don't realize and you lose yourself because you never check yourself. Because you started off with a really good thing. These guys, they're sitting all day and learning. I don't understand. We're here, we're working in the kibbutz. But let me ask you, Rahi. Now you're feeding chickens every day. Where does that get you to? You're just a bigger chicken feeder. You just feed chickens for longer. What's your exit strategy from that place? Do you understand? So I can't argue with you on your terms. But let me argue with you in how it plays out. Sometimes people think to themselves that many of the policies and many of the issues that we talk about that are anti-Torah, what's wrong with this? What's wrong with that? What's wrong with the other thing? Right now, nothing is wrong with that thing. But just for 1 second, could you look down the road? Paro, hold up. Could you survive itching from lice? Lice are not going to kill you. I mean, they could if they bring disease and whatever, but then it's the disease that killed you, not the lice. Could you survive that? So Paro says, look, you know what? You guys can't reproduce the lice? Okay. It's the finger of God? Okay. Lice is not going to kill me. Moron. The lice just tell you that the finger of God is not pointing at you, it's pointing away from you. The finger of God is telling you that this is not the person you're supposed to be. So look down the road, understand where this goes, how this develops. Chacham enav birosho. I want to give you one last example of this idea. There's a fellow who's down on his luck. He has no parnasah. He doesn't know what to do. He looks for one job after the next. He doesn't really have an education. Doesn't really have any great skills. His whole life he's been working hand to mouth because that's how he's been living from the day he was born. You know, today we have a luxury. Higher education is the highest form of luxury, Baruch Hashem. Where you could live half of your lifetime or a quarter of your lifetime and not be earning anything. You think about that for a minute. That's the world that we live in. Back then, you were 6 years old, they had you plowing the field. Because if you didn't plow the field, you didn't get a potato, then you starved to death. That's what it used to be. The kids were taken out of school in 4th grade, and 5th grade, and 8th grade. Come work with me in the factory. Come work with me in the store. That's what it was. Today we have the luxury of being able to not do that. Whether it's yeshivot, whether it's in college, whatever the case might be. But they did not have that luxury. This guy, he has no skill. He's trying to figure something out. He's trying to... Anyway, he finds a wanted ad in the newspaper. What's the wanted ad? To be a janitor in a high-tech company. The guy says to himself, a janitor I could be. So he goes down, he sits down, he's a smart guy. Maybe he's not educated, he's a smart guy. Some people are very educated, stupid people. This guy is a smart person, uneducated. Sits down, and you know what? He has a really great interview. Explains to the guy why he wants the job, how he's going to do the job, how he thinks he can do the job really well, how he's going to make it work, etc. The boss is very impressed. He says, you know something? Fantastic. You're hired. What's your email address? I'll send you the contract. The guy says, I'm really sorry. I don't have an email address. He's old school. This is right when the computers started becoming a thing. I don't have an email address. The fellow says, you don't have an email address? I'm sorry. We only work with email. I'm sorry, you can't have the job. Guy comes home, so deflated. Why, I can't even be a janitor? Because I don't have an email? Give me a job at gmail.com. The guy takes the last 30 shekel he has, he goes to the shuk, he buys 4 or 5 watermelons. Goes home, cuts the watermelons into 10 pieces, walks around from house to house schlepping watermelons, saying, like we used to be outside my house in Machal 2 in Yerushalayim. It's a guy on a loudspeaker. Avatiach, avatiach. Avatiach 5 shekel. הכי טעים שטעמת בחיים. avatiach, avatiach. All day long. I just wanted to tell the guy, just get a stupid tape recorder. Make your job much easier. Okay. He sells avatiach. This guy, that guy, this guy, that guy. Out of one avatiach, he makes quadruple the amount of money. Anyway, he comes home after working that day with quadruple the 120 shekel. He says, listen, I can't do anything. I don't have a job. I did it today. I'll do it tomorrow. It takes 120 shekel. He reinvested in the business. He buys, 20 avatiachs, cuts them up, walks around, no problem. Unbelievable profit. From after he gets too many bags to carry with him all day long, he gets himself a cart. 2-3 weeks go by, the cart becomes a motorcycle, a little tustus, right? Tustus over a while is no longer good. Buys himself a van. A van becomes a truck. A truck becomes a fleet of trucks. Slowly but surely, this guy winds up cornering a massive portion of the fruit and vegetable market and becomes one of the greatest import-export guys in fruit and vegetables in Israel. You with me? Anyway, one day, someone makes an appointment. They come and knock on his door. They tell him, I have the most incredible deal. It's going to make you and me very, very rich. You're already very rich. You're already very well to do. He says, but I have a deal for you that's going to kind of scale us up to crazy places. Let's make a deal. The guy says, okay. They agree the terms of the deal. And the guy says, what's your email? Let me send you the contract. Hadad smiles. And he says, I don't have an email. And the other guy says, wow. You built all this without any technology. You don't even have an email. I can't even begin to imagine what you would have had if you had an email. And Hadad says, I could begin to imagine what I would have if I had an email. I'd have a job as a janitor. There are times when a person gets to see in their life that their conclusions and their decisions are not on par with the reality of their world. So they think something's being proven to them again and again and again and again. And Paro thinks to himself, I hear the etzba Elokim, I get it. But you know what? That's not going to make me change course. In those moments, what does a person need to see? What do they need to understand? They need to realize that this finger of God, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get worse. It's only going to get worse. You started coming to shul every day, and now you're sleeping in 2 days a week. What do you think is going to happen? 2 days is going to become 3, 3, 4, 4, 5. Figure out how to change your alarm clock. Figure out how to decide that you're going to take the kids to school. Figure out how to solve for this problem. You have an issue. You want to study Gemara. The guy says, but Rabbi, I have my basketball game at that same time. Get another basketball game. InsideHoops.com. What's your email? I'll send it to you. Do you understand? Recognize that if that's your class and you can't go to that class and that's your one with the boys, where's that going to go? Hashem should bless us to be able to see when these things are standing in front of us, when we're answering ourselves, when we're making poor choices, when we're not seeing how things are developing, when we're not willing to open our eyes. And Hashem should bless us with someone that comes to us and sets us straight and reminds us that it wasn't the email that made the man. Reminds us that yes, I could have stayed there, but you know what I would do? I'd be doing now? Feeding more chickens. Hashem should bless us to be able to recognize the folly of our own logic. Baruch Adonai Le'olam.